Hey guys, new video here. Heirophant, Volatile Dead, Indigon, Poet's Pen Boy. I'm gonna show you some gameplay first. This is I just chose something with a fire res on the boss. 71% more monster life. Show you some gameplay first. I didn't want to do like a shape or anything because like it takes so long in the beginning. So let's get right into it. All right, so I'm gonna do this. It's a nice build. I don't have any MTX on. Sorry about that. So I'm gonna kill some monsters here. I don't have my dude out. Here we go. So you're basically holding down one button. The build is pretty beastly. It is energy shield based, it is low life based. There is a whole lot to talk about with this build. I'm not gonna pick that thing up because I just kind of want to show off the build, and then we're gonna go towards I'll pick this up though. Go towards the Ponix boss and then do some damages, and we'll see how it goes with a little extra boss life. Now I will say I've been playing this build for a while now. It is pretty fun, it's really relaxing. If you're someone who doesn't want to focus too much on really anything but holding down one key and then maybe moving your mouse around a little bit, this might be the build for you. It's a little bit pricey. Go over all the gear and stuff. So here we go. We're in here. I pop my Vol Righteous Fire. I go in here. Alright, we're just casting, and... Alright, he's going to do a little burst here. And he should die now. So really easy, you didn't have to do much there, really low maintenance once you get everything set up. The main hard part about the build is the actual setup. So like I said, we have a ton to talk about gearing, and we'll talk about swaps and everything. So everything about this build centers around this helmet right here. This is an Indigon. Basically how it works is if you look right here at my mana, I'm attacking, right? You see it costs no mana right now, but as I keep attacking and ramping up, you see what happens there? Like the mana is just gone, right? And right now I don't have leech, I don't have any any recovery going on, so it's really slow. I can't attack that much. But you're ramping up the mana, and then as you spend more mana recently, you gain spell damage. So basically, the two rolls that matter on here are the you want a 60% increased spell damage for 200 total mana you spent recently. That's like the most important roll, and then the one above it, the increased mana cost of skills for each 200 total mana you spent recently. That's what ramps it up, because you spend mana, and then as you've recently spent mana, you spend more mana. As you spend more mana, you know, it keeps going and going until you reach the break point of like whatever your mana regen plus your leech is. So the build is very tied very closely to mana regen and mana leech, which we'll go over in a second as well. So this helmet, you have to have it for this version of the build. Now there are other cheaper versions and maybe even like more fun versions. You can do like Pathfinder with this, with a Xerpes Flask, and a Xerpes Flask gives you insane, you know, like 50,000 plus life regen a second, and just like ridiculous amounts like that. The reason I didn't choose that is because although that is nice, in the deeper delves, you're just gonna get one shot. You can see people's rip clips with like 9k HP, you know, 10k HP, things like that. You're just not going to survive when you go too deep. So for all the other content in the games, maps, guardians, shapers, all that stuff, it makes kind of a joke out of the entire rest of the game. And if you're lazy and you like to play this, all you gotta do is hold down one button, ramp up your mana costs, and then you'll be able to go ham. Now, if you are going to get one, obviously 10% maximum mana is the max roll on that one. I was able to get these rolls in one divine. It was pretty cool. But 10% mana, because you want as much, everything in this build is mana. So you want as much mana as possible. And the energy shield values I would not care about, because the energy shield values, when you are just ramping mana conversion from mana into ES, flat ES and things like that, you might be used to getting like as much as you can on like a Righteous Fire build, but the flat ES doesn't actually matter, so don't worry too much about that. Now this helm enchant, Volatile Dead, destroys up to 1 additional corpse. This one was bought for 60 exalts. I believe at the time of this recording it is maybe 125 exalts, so you don't, but once again, you don't need it. It's just 1 additional corpse, which is a more multiplier for your damage, but you're getting like, you know, 5,000-6,000 increased spell damage anyways. So if you want to go like full juice, you will get that enchant. There are some on PoE trade now, and I expect the value like after. I think there's a few other streamers playing Poet's Pen recently, so maybe in a week or so it will go down a little bit. So this helmet is absolutely mandatory. Indigon, right? Once again, spell damage roll at 6% is pretty much a must because that ramps so high, and then obviously mana cost is second most important, and then the 10% maximum mana on it is the third most important. The other things, recover 10% of maximum life when using a mana flask. We don't use a mana flask on this build, nor do we have life, so it wouldn't actually work on that. And then non-instant mana recovery from flask also recovers life. Once again, doesn't matter. We're not life based, we are ES based, and so that has no effect. Okay, that's the first item. The second item that's actually, well, I guess it's debatable between I guess you have to use the Poet's Pen. So let's talk about the Poet's Pens. The Poet's Pens are what is the what sets the build in motion, right? When you are attacking, the Poet's Pen has a 250 millisecond like internal cooldown, and it will basically cast for you. All you need to do is attack, and one common misconception is you don't even need a skill. Let's say you have your auto attack here. You see this? I'm auto attacking, and I'm doing all the casts here. It's just a little bit slower because there's like a frenzy setup that I'll use to ramp up my mana, which we'll go over in a second. So you have to have two Poet's Pens because you have so much already flat added spell damage. The intrinsic value, the 15%, it doesn't really matter. So if you want to buy a cheaper already corrupted Poet's Pen that maybe doesn't have the 15%, maybe it has like 11 or something, a little bit cheaper, you can definitely buy that one. And then the attack speed as well doesn't actually matter, and the reason for that is because you will be able to manipulate your attack speed through gems and the tree to a level where you have a range of maybe 1 attack per second, which is huge. You can go from 3.8 all the way to like 4.8, and it's really easy to do and really cheap to do. So I wouldn't worry too much about the attack speed. The reason I went 12 attack speed is because on the gear setup I have, it made the top end a little bit easier to test out and then lower down. And I'll go over that in a little bit too. That's like a huge part of this build that that warrants its own like little video maybe. And it's kind of interesting. So 2 Poet's Pen, attack speed doesn't matter. The spell damage roll on there doesn't matter as well. And then later on, I'll explain why and the attack speed mechanics there. Okay, so get 2 of these. Right now, I think they're about 70 chows, maybe 75 chows. So get 2 of them, 1.5x, not too bad. As for the rings, let's go to the easy stuff first, okay, so that we can get to the harder stuff later. So rings, you can do this. What I'm going for is I need to first and foremost cap my resist. That's most important. I need to make sure that my fire resist is the highest because of Wise Oak that I'll be using. And then after I cap my resist and then somehow make my fire res the highest after all my flasks are active, then we're looking at things like you can get a little bit of mana. I would actually want mana. Once again, mana is more important, vastly more important than a flat ES roll, but the mana rings that I saw that had the resist I need and some other stuff on it were way too expensive for what I was going to spend on a ring. So these rings are actually pretty cheap. On one of your rings, you need, I believe, 30 something dexterity because you will have some dex requirements. Now you will be using Zubi's foible to lower attribute requirements, but just trust me, get at least like 30 something dex on one of your rings. It doesn't matter which one. And so for this one, I have the dex. The cold damage attack does not matter at all. The ES barely matters at all. And of course, once again, getting the resist that you need, with fire resist being the most important once everything comes together, right? And then so 20% faster start of energy shooter charge. It doesn't really matter, but I found this one anyway, so why not use it? So that's pretty good. The next ring we're looking for, now this is very important. It is mandatory, I believe, in this build to have a Warlord's Mark on hit. And the reason is, once again, this is everything about this build is mana, because you're trying to ramp your Indigon as high up as you can. So what happens is, like, you're going to get the Warlord's Mark, and obviously on any non-boss mob, right? I think you're getting like, what, 2% leech, and leech and recovery is your damage. So you need some way to get that mana up faster. So watch this. As I ramp up, you'll notice that, look at my mana regen. It's pretty good, right? I mean, look at this. I have 11.7k mana, and look how fast it regens. But this is without like any kind of recovery, and it's without any kind of leech. So with leech, you'll see it like shoot up. It's crazy because the leech can be multiplied by things such as like recovery speed. We'll talk about that later once again. So So yeah, you have to have the Warlord's Mark on hit, and then obviously you're leeching life as well. Now there is some life leech with the Heirophant Ascendancy, which we'll talk about in a second too. But as for this ring, just trust me, get the Warlord's Mark on hit. I mean, it gives you a little bit of endurance charges throughout, which is nice. You know, a little bit of resist, a little bit of physical damage reduction, and I crafted a mana roll on here. Once again, mana is extremely important, and then fill out the rest of your resist. As you can see, the ring's not that crazy. This ring is maybe a couple exalts. But you definitely need to get this. Okay, so just make sure that is that's filling out your resist and has Warlord's Mark on hit. The next thing is a Adzubi's Foible. Now this has a implicit of mana regen, which is once again very nice. That is you can translate that to damage, and then 100% mana. Once again, mana is damage, and then 24% increased mana. Once again, damage. 100% mana regen rate, damage, and then the reduced attribute requirements is actually really nice, because if you look here, I have 97 dex, right? And then some of these gems that I'm using require 111. So it actually it drops down the requirement of these green gems that I'm using, you see? So really nice there. And then you'll need to tinker with the greenness. You see how I have a 2012 faster attacks here? Reason I have a 2012 faster attacks, it's actually important to the build. So you'll need it to like kind of mess around here. Okay, so get the Zeus. This is extremely cheap. Even if you look for a max for rolled one, it's going to cost you nothing. This is a very common drop, and I would say this is you really can't swap this. It is an amazing amulet for this purpose, right? And as for the gloves, I believe that Adzubi's Acuities are the best here in terms of overall feel. Now you might be thinking, I could like why, right? Like you know, it doesn't have any ES on it. It's just kind of weird. But you know, we are taking Ghost Reaver in the top right here to life leech is applied to energy shield instead, and then 50% less energy recharge rate, which doesn't really matter that much. But so you are critting a lot. Once again, the build is focused on like basically you need to be doing damage to leech all your stuff at both your mana and your life. So once you crit, which you will be doing since we're taking Elemental Overlord and we're using like Skyforce to gain power charges, which will help out our crit a little bit more, like Volpack doubles your leech, right? So instead of your ES going up like a little bit slowly, you might be a little bit worried. It will zoom all the way up, and there's other things you can do to help that out too, like a flow and tether belt, which we'll talk about in a sec. So make sure you get these at the time I believe are 4 exalts, but this is the best in slot. It will help your survivability immensely. Okay, so just get these gloves. Also 78 intelligence. Intelligence is a little bit ES, a little bit of manas, and so intelligence it's actually pretty crazy. If you sub in these gloves for, say, I want to even say like ES gloves of any kind for, let's say you have ES gloves of like, I don't know, 170, 180, I'm almost certain that these are even more ES, because you don't have like too much ES on the tree, but once again, all of it gets converted from mana. Okay, so get the Adzubi's Acuities. As for the boots, Skyforce, you know, very popular boots back in the day. I'm glad they've kind of made a comeback for this build. They are amazing. So a massive amount of mana that goes to 120, not just 114. So the other 6 mana I could get, you know, 30% movement speed, which is like pretty default for boots that you want these days. 25% chance to gain power charge on crit, so that'll ramp up your Elemental Overlord. And this is not a crit build. This is just flat out damages. So that's really nice as well. It gets you ramped up, keeps your Elemental Overlord up, as well as making sure that you proc more crits with the power charges you gain that will give you Pack if you've dealt a crit strike recently for 4 seconds. Really nice, and it's like it's gonna be very rare that you don't crit in 4 seconds. Like almost impossible. So you get this a little bit of mana reservation that helps a little bit, especially over here, since we are life. All the life over here is being reserved by auras, and a big part is it doesn't matter if you know life regen, because once again we're ES based, and the stun threshold is based on 500% of your mana inside life. So if you look at my mana, I have let's just say 12,000, right? So I basically have like just under 60,000 life for stun calculations, which is insane. You can't get stunned. You know, I've been in the middle of the delves, like deep delves where like the Roas spawn, and the Roas all like charge it, have like an immunity aura sometimes, and then like you still don't get stunned. It's actually impossible. You can still get killed and stuff, of course, but like you just can't get stunned, which is really nice. Like you don't have to take weird stuff like Brian King or anything like that. So Skyforce, I would say, is the best for this boot slot for sure. And then the regen is actually insane. So you might think, 2% of life mana per second, like it's whatever. If you get hit, you're always getting hit because of the way body swap works, and like there's so much projectiles in this game. You're gonna get hit. 2% regen. It is so big when you have when you have this much mana. Okay, I want to say even to the point where it's like. With recovery, it's got to be at least like 1,000 or plus, right? It's at least, maybe even much more. So I don't know. You have to put into POB to test it yourself for if you've been hit recently. But the boot enchant is absolutely insane, and so I would. Even if you have to buy like a really crappy Skyforce and then divine it up to the mana yourself to get this enchant, I totally would. Now another thing you could do, let me do D&D. I'm still like I'm not streaming or anything, but like I'm like in the game right now. Okay, D&D. Sorry about that, guys. So with this boots, you can also go 0.6 leech if you want. Like if you somehow cannot get this enchant, you can go 0.6 leech. It helps a little bit with the mana sometimes. Helps a little bit with the life as well, but. You want this enchant, trust me on that. It's a world of difference. And other than that, let's talk about the chest. So the chest is, I am using a Chevroni's wrappings because I wanted to go Pain Attunement and I wanted to reserve mana auras on my life. So on my life I have Purity of Lightning and Discipline with an Enlighten, so that fits here. I have 124 life left, and the reason I went chat is because I just really like having extra auras. The possibility just makes me feel good, because then you can, if you ever want in the future, you can tweak your auras around, add things in, take things out, and it's not too hard to do. And then obviously 30% more spell damage is not bad. But this isn't even like that big a deal, because there are swaps for this, and let's go over all the swaps later all at once. Okay, so that's a nice chest right there. And then let's see, flow untethered. So this is actually, maybe I would say this is like, this belt slot is maybe like very closely tied to this helm, because the belt choice, now you're like, oh, where's the headhunter, where's this stuff? And you can use headhunter for delving, you can use headhunter for mapping. It'll be really fun. The reason I'm using a flow untethered is because there are a number of good things about this. So cooldown recovery speed obviously affects the spells that are going out, the volatile deads, more of them in the same amount of time. Increased energy shield recovery rate, nothing needs to be said there. And then of course increased life recovery rate. So the increased energy shield recovery rate, increased life recovery rate, like you're converting all your leech, right, your leech into the ES, so you'll see it shoot up faster with this belt. Now you can get like cooldown rate and other stuff like that on other belts, which we'll talk about swaps all at once. And of course attack and cast speed, this helps you a little bit out when you go to the top end of attacks per second and then drop it down to see with your latency what attacks per second feels the best. So just a lot of rolls here. Really cheap actually. Like at the time, this was this one I bought for like a little bit, but right now these have to be 1.52 exalts, right? If you want like a good roll like this, you're looking at a few more exalts more than that. But yeah, this is what I found to be like just really reliable, and because the leech is like fast, right? It's hard to find another belt that gives you leech as fast as this belt. That's the only reason, really the only reason I'm using this, because if you, once again, getting one shot in the delves that's going to happen no matter what. And I've seen 10k like good defensive builds get wrecked. I've seen like I've seen a whole number of things happen in the delves, right? So if you get one shot with a massive hit, no amount of leech is going to save you, right? So so my reasoning was that if all those little hits that add up, right, those are what's scary to me, because one shot, okay, who cares, I couldn't do anything about that. But the little hits that go chunk 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 and then they kill you, that's what I want to protect myself against. So I want more leech, so that the energy shield regens faster in between the little hits that might catch you off guard. Sometimes you even like stand underneath the rain of splinters azurity ball that shoots the shards after like the vein is like depleted. It's really annoying. So that's why I chose this. And we'll go over other item choices in a second. What else do we have here? Did I go over everything in terms of this? I think I did, right? And then as for the flasks, here I'm using a Dying Sun because it is possible that sometimes if there's no corpses around, you might be able to do a couple more volatile deads on a cast, you know, depending on the body swaps and stuff like that. But this isn't actually necessary. If I were going to go, if I was scared of physical damage, which I am, I would go actually a Basalt Flask probably, and then reduce a little bit of that physical damage, and I could also get like another suffix, which would be nice. But Dying Sun is cool for now. Also helps like super capsule, right? If I pop this, you see I'm full, right? Wise Oak, wait, no, Wise Oak is 5. So as you can see, my fire res is always the highest, and then also getting max res because fire damage is the most common type of damage in the entire game. Not bad, right? Extra little projectiles too for Frenzy and for Unearth, but not really necessary. Now this one right here, I would say that this is necessary because it makes it really easy to gauge to have a constant source of onslaught to gauge your attacks per second when you're testing that out. And of warding, if you're doing maps, you know how important warding is. It makes you have to reroll so much less maps, makes temp chains, enfeeble, that kind of stuff a thing of the past. And so I would say this is mandatory. Quicksilver, now you might be wondering, if you're body swapping, why are you using an Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline? And it's sometimes because with the mana, if you take all your mana and you don't and you don't have, you have like a slower attack, so the body swap is a little bit extended between the casts. You know, you might get hit by like a Shaper Slam, you might get hit by like, you know, something where you need to move. So it is always nice to have the fastest flask available so that you can just manually move your character, okay? So I would say I wouldn't move this one either. Now this one right here, Zuby's Promise, this is just for damages. You know, you have a ton of spell damage, you have a ton of elemental damage, and then so you get a little bit extra damage on top of that. Not bad. A little bit of Chow's Resist, not bad either, you know? And especially if you, like, I was actually going to go to Alchemist very soon. I was going to take off like a little bit of mana and take off a little bit of like some other stuff to go flask effectiveness, so it makes it really nice. And so this is like, you can swap in whatever else you want. It's just some big damages here. And then a Wise Oak, this is huge, especially if you get the Alchemist node, right, for a little bit extra penetration. So this once again, I'm gonna hit my Dying Sun and my other thing, and look at my resist. You see, because my fire res is always the most, and even if I don't have a Dying Sun here, I'll show you. Even if I don't have a Dying Sun here, my fire res is the highest, so I'm always penetrating 15 ally resist, which is massive, especially if you're going against bosses that have an abnormal amount of res for some reason. It's a bigger more multiplier than 15%, if that makes any sense. Okay, just trust the math on that. So you have to have this. I don't even have quality on this. Look at this, I'm a noob. I've been playing this build to level 97, no quality on the flask, doesn't even matter. I'll fix that later. So you have to get this, okay? And that's all the gear there. So let's talk about gear swaps real quick, okay? So for the gear swaps, let's talk about the most important piece. You cannot swap this, okay? That is the build. So the next two important are gonna be the chest and the belt. So the chest, you might be thinking, you know, can I go, if the ES really doesn't matter that much in terms of flat ES, can I go a Cloak of Defiance or like the black chest with the white sun on the, I forgot what it's called. Okay, anyways, Cloak of Defiance, mana regen 1%. That's massive. And then Cloak of Defiance is a solid choice because it does still give some ES. I think it's evasion ES. So that actually improves your damages that way, because if you're regenerating more mana, you're doing more damage, and then so it's 30% more. It's actually pretty competitive with that, to be honest. So that's a really good choice right there. Now, another thing you use is, I forgot what it's called. I think it's called like Cherubim's Maleficent or something. It's a black armor with like a white sun on the chest. It's black and white armor. I forgot what it's called. I'm sorry, I'm a noob. But that chest, it gives you, I believe, what does it give you? Oh man, thinking from memory. Chow's damage. No, damage taken as Chow's, right? So if you go some kind of like CI variant, or you have like good Chow's resist, like in Azubi's and stuff, and once again like Alchemist, like you're just gonna laugh at that. So that's totally fine. And then also it gives you, I believe, Ellie as Chow's. So like once again, just like the flask, you're converting a little bit to extra damage. So that's damage as well. That is very respectable compared to Bane Attunement, if not even better. I don't know the math yet, but once again, this Pain Attunement comes with the damage and the ability to reserve life for more utility and for more auras. So that's why I chose this one. So Cherubim's cherubims or a cloak of defiance can be swapped in here if you want. The Chevrones gives you a big lightning resist too. You might need that, you might not need that. So that's another thing to consider. So that's the swaps there. Now the belt is super important in terms of you know, what you want to swap out. It might be like just as important as the chest. Actually, I'd rate these two as like the most swappable. So let's talk about rare belts. If you can get a belt, I think it's a shaper base. Shaper base can get mana recovery on it's just like mana recovery. So mana recovery is directly correlated with damage. And so you can get, I forgot what the T1 roll is, but it's really easy to find. I think up to like 20% mana recovery or something like that, which is so much damage, right? So it's really nice. And then you can also get like cooldown reduction roll on a belt as well. So like you put those two together and then bam, massive damages, but you don't get the sexiness of like this or like a headhunter, which is the other swap. So and those shaper belts are actually really cheap. So you can find them on PoE trade, use that, and then, you know, get whatever. You can also probably get like flask nodes on that rare belt too, which is pretty cool. The other one is a headhunter. Now a headhunter is like this: you lose the leech rate for like those little intermittent hits that might chunk you and kill you if you don't leech fast enough. But with Headhunter, you can get up to like, you know, 20, 30,000 ES depending on the content you're getting through stolen mods. You can get speed, and one thing that I cannot say enough about Headhunter is that the movement speed you get from the double, there's two different auras you can get that give you movement speed and attack speed and stuff like that. Getting those makes running around a joy. So like if you're able to run like twice as fast as I'm going right now, it just feels good. You don't even need to body swap, right? Because you're body swapping you're ramping your mana. Sometimes you won't body swap because you'll be out of mana, and then the frenzy stops and you use a normal attack, which delays the cast. Okay, so running around I can't say enough about running around. It feels amazing, and although the header will mess up your attacks anyways, you're still overall faster and more total effective health goal at the cost of, you know, let's say you don't get like a 30, like 20 plus K ES. When you get chunked, your recovery rate on the ES and your leech rate is not going to be as great. You know, because this little sexy harbinger which speeds up your action speed, but that doesn't really matter. So Headhunter, I would say pretty damn good for delving, for mapping. You'll have a lot of fun with it, but just for reliability, I chose this. I tested out both quite a while. So yeah, that's your swap there. Now for boots, I would really try to get this. This is like a really cheap pair of boots right now, and you know, have your friend lab run it. You know, lab run it yourself. Get either of the enchants. I guess you could do some kind of, what's that like ring that does, like you could do some kind of like it's like a silver ring, like Valyrium. I think you can maybe try a Valyrium setup, swap things around, but like just get the boots, okay? Just get the boots. You'll thank me later, okay? And then as for the gloves, there are things you can do if you're gonna go some kind of low life setup that where you can actually use things like void bringers, right? So if you have like void bringers here, let me just show you real quick. I bought one just like maybe test out later. Like if you bring these, it's like socket elemental gems. You can possibly do some weird stuff with an empower and like a plus socket gems and like purities to gain some more defenses. A little bit like once again, the energy shield is less than you get from the intelligence from the Azubis, but you can try some stuff here if you want. But yeah, like just get these gloves, but you can't swap it out for anything else really. Okay, as for rings, once again, that was just like try to get mana on the rings if you can. Mana is really important. And anything else here? Nope. You can do a weapon swap for lightning warp, Poet's Pen. That'd be really sick to like cross gaps faster, to move a little bit faster, not have to like, you know, you don't even have to hold down and click that much. But the reason I didn't do that is you can see I've been leveling empowers for a while, and empowers are nice because if you vol one of these to 4, you get 4 exalts or something. I think it's still 4 exalts. So I went for leveling for the monies instead of the convenience of moving a little bit faster. But another double Poet's Pen setup with lightning warp, and there you go. Another thing to be said about the build is, so let's talk about the gem setups first. We haven't even gotten to this yet. My goodness. maybe we should talk about the Ascendancy first and the reasons behind this. Okay, so we'll go here first. So I chose Heirophant, and the reason for that is, if you look at the little mini nodes, a little mana regeneration. Once again, mana is, think of mana regeneration as damage, and leech as damage. So damage, and well, spell damage roll again. This one is pretty nice. 25% ink AoE when you don't have much on the tree itself is noticeable. And then the big one is like 0.5% spell damage leech as life when you have Arcane Surge. You always have Arcane Surge, which is like up here, but so you will be leeching a little bit. 0.5 is, that's basically a merciless lav enchant, and it's enough, trust me, even with like plus the amount for the curse effectiveness, right? Because the curse effectiveness, although it's 2% on regular monsters, it goes down by 80% for a glowy like boss monster. So you fight like Shaper and stuff, negative like 80% less curse effectiveness. So this added together, it makes it pretty darn solid. Okay, so how do I get Arcane Surge? Well, you gain this whenever you hit an enemy with a spell, which is like always. Okay, so you always have this up, and then you're also immune to ally ailments, so you don't need to get like any kind of like shocking heat, all that stuff. You're completely immune to the stuff that might catch you off guard. So it gives you, and that's why you have such like free flask choices. So Arcane Blessing, awesome, like 10% more spell damage, and when you have like already like thousands of increased spell damage, it multiplies it, and it feels really good. Cast speed, that doesn't really matter, but 0.5% of maximum mana regenerated per second for 4 seconds. Well, you have it all the time, not just 4 seconds, but that is massive. Once again, mana regeneration is damage. Amazing. That's why I take that. Once again, damage is here, right? Maximum mana and mana regen is both damages. Divine Guidance, 150% maximum mana is damages. This 10% of damage taken from mana before life, it doesn't even matter, because if you actually get it, only procs, like the way Minor of Matter works is like this only procs if it gets to the life. And if you see I have 120 life, if my life gets hit, it doesn't matter if it takes some mana, because I'll be dead anyways in any hit from any monster in any content that's after like, I don't know, like level 10 or whatever. So that really doesn't matter. And then this part, oh my goodness. So this part, like the first part, actually kind of like a downside, because your ramping speed is lower. You see this? Like I'm using like a Fever Mine, which I'll go over the jewels on the tree, but it takes a while to ramp up still. So like the first two parts are not exactly like too big a benefit, but the last two, look at this, 30% of maximum mana as extra ES. So you stack the mana, you get the defensive as well, right? And this will be tied with a Watcher's Eye later, which will give you even more energy shield. And then 10% less mana reservation. This is what allows the low life, the Pain Attunement one, to really feel nice, because without that 10% less and then maybe the Enlightens, it'd be hard to fit my Discipline Purity on here. I might have to swap things out a little bit more. So it makes the gear, the gemming and the other stuff a little bit easier. And so just there's no other things you can get here. It's these four, get them. There's no swaps. Okay. Okay, so that is that. Okay, we're gonna talk about gems now. Like I said, this is gonna be a long video, I'm sorry, but there's still a bunch to talk about. The first one is an Unearth. So Unearth, make sure that it's in your main hand here, okay, or else it won't, like you see how like when I started attacking here, it I don't really skip many casts. Once again, we'll talk about that in a second. And the Unearth will feel a lot smoother if it's in your main hand, so keep it here. I know like the Templar is like left-handed or whatever, but like I know this is the main hand. So make sure that in the left socket you have or the left weapon swap spot, you have your Unearth, your GMP, and your body swap. So Unearth, GMP, body swap, nothing to change there. The body swap is to move you as you're attacking, so you can do damage and reposition yourself at the same time. And the GMP is to make more corpses on the ground so that your volatile deaths can spawn. And then of course you have a corpse to teleport to. Sometimes you'll have corpses that you've killed that teleport to, but this is just a surefire way to get it. Okay, nothing more to be said there. This one right here, this is your Volatile Dead. This is the main damages. So you obviously want to get a level 21 Volatile Dead if you can. At the point I bought this, it was like 1.5 exalts, and then you're gonna want to do probably Ellie Focus and Fire Pen. Now there's a swap here. You can put Conk Effect instead of Fire Pen if you're doing lower tier content, or like, you know, the bosses are melting anyways. It doesn't matter so much. So you can put Conk Effect. Now the reason I put Fire Pen is because later on, like, you might run some, you know, whether you're delving or doing some like Shaper or Elder or whatever, or some crazy map rolls where like the Guardian has like a bunch of resist and more life. This becomes a bigger more multiplier. A 38% fire penetration is a bigger more multiplier than a 55% more of the concentrated effect, because of the way that resistances work multiplicatively. Like as they get higher, the penetration is worth more and more. Okay, so once again, just trust me on the math there. So this is all around good, and like this is only worse on, like, you know, like the trash and the blues and the yellows and stuff, and for those you're gonna be one-shining them anyway, so you don't need any damage. So I put in the Fire Pen just to be an all-around solid choice here, but I don't think you'll even notice. You can swap in Conk Effect here if you want. Okay, so that's the swap there. Volatile, Elemental Focus, Fire Penetration. In the helmet I have an Enlighten linked to Purity of Ice, Clarity, and Herald of Ash. So Clarity and Herald of Ash. Herald of Ash is there because when you blow up and overkill a mob, because you do huge amounts of damage, that Herald of Ash will give you the AoE. Especially important if you use a Conk Effect in here. Okay, very, very important to use the Herald of Ash. It will just, like, you'll notice it clears much better, and then this will just burn them down. It's a lot of overkill damage. Okay, and also gives you a more damage multiplier as well, which is pretty sick. Also cool MTX, your character will look cooler. Clarity is for mana regen. Once again, mana regen is damage, and also as a Watcher's Eye will go over on the tree. Purity of Ice, because my ice resist is horrible, and obviously max res is always good. And into the chest. So chest is actually kind of complicated. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's go into the gloves here. So the gloves, I'm doing a very classic Immortal Call, cast when damage taken 1, Immortal Call 3, and then increased duration. This is actually really nice because you always have endurance charges because of Warlord's Mark during the map. So you have the 3 endurance charges. Boom, you get hit, you know, the Immortal Call pops off, and then it uses the 3 endurance charges, and then it lasts for a respectable amount of time. Righteous, this is a Vol Righteous Fire. Don't worry about the regular Righteous Fire. It's only for the Vol version. It's a massive more damage multiplier, 39% more. So it's like imagine it as like a 8th link, or not really an 8th. It's like a 6th link. Okay, essentially, because this is like 3 linked. Wait, this is 4 links because it has an Empower on it already, and then Pain Attunement is a 5 link, and then like this would be like a 6 link, right? It's really insane, and it does a lot of damage. So that's there, and then obviously it's also linked to this increased duration, so it lasts a little bit longer. Okay, so you pop this on bosses with all Righteous Fire. Boots, blood magic. So once again, we are Shavs, so we can reserve all our life for nodes. Purity of Lightning for a little bit of max res and just like regular res, and then discipline, that's ES, so nothing to say there. Get a 21 discipline if you can, and that's it. That's the 2 auras there. Okay, this part of my tape, how do I explain this? How do I even start? So the frenzy is the thing that ramps your mana. You look at my mana again, it's ramping an attack, and then there's a cap that is once again your regen plus your leech plus any recovery mods that you have. And so the frenzy, what you're trying to do with this is, first and foremost, you are trying to have the biggest mana multipliers that you possibly can to ramp up. Okay, so this multi-strike is 1.8, this is 1.5, this is 1.65, this is 1.6, and then this is this faster attacks is just to get the it isn't the biggest multiplier, but it is there to get your attacks to a respectable level to be casting as much as you can. Okay, so the colors, the ultimate colors would be either 4 green and 2 red, or 3 green and 3 red. And the reason for that is this chain right here is a 1.5 multiplier, but imagine you had a red here, you could put life gain on hit, which is also 0.5. Now life gain on hit obviously does nothing for you since we're ES, but chain support actually helps maybe the frenzies bounce around a little bit. So and also if you put quality on this, which I didn't, I should have, is that the chain quality gives you projectile speed, so the frenzies hit a little bit faster. So it is technically better than life gain on hit for this setup of the build. Once again, I had a hard time chroming this. I used 30,000 chromes, and I finally got a 4 green, 2 red. So yeah, so luckily I had a 1.5 multiplier there. So that's what you'll use there. There is a swap here that you can do, and that is that you can put in a combustion setup with the frenzy, and that way what's going to happen is combustion is blue, right? Because it's really hard if you want to make a Shavs 6 off colors, but 5 off colors was actually really easy if you use 2 red 1 green, or like 2 green 1 red, whatever, on Varici for 100 chromes a piece. So if you have a blue socket, you can try putting in like a lightning pen, which is 1.4, or the crazy setup that I tried, which was like kind of effective but not really reliable, was a combustion setup, because combustion makes them, I believe, have like around like negative 20 fire res, and that's just crazy, right? Like that's really good. So you can put in a combustion and then try that with your frenzy. So if you hit with your frenzy, chance to ignite, they get ignited, they have less fire res, you do more damage, and it is theoretically way more damage than this, but like, I don't know, I think combustion's like 1.15 multiplier, and then like you gotta do some weird stuff and it's unreliable, but you definitely can. You can also put in a combustion maybe in for body swap if you just want to run around, right? That is something else you can do, and let your unearth ignite them. So, you know, because like the Herald of Ash gives you your fist of fire. So that's a swap there. Test it out, really try it out. I have been, it's pretty good but unreliable. Okay, so that's that. Did I cover everything here? I think that's all the gear here. And now let's go into the tree. So the tree, literally everything is mana. If you look here, if I just search mana, look at this. Like look at how much stuff is like is like kind of mana. Even the life nodes are mana. You see this? So, oh man, where do we start? So this is essentially the tree. I think this is like kind of the best version of the tree. Now there are stuff you can remove, like right here and right here. This is just because I'm level 97, so I had some free points. I needed the resist actually right here. And then, you know, obviously mana regen is damages, but I could have just as easily went into Flask effectiveness for a little bit extra penetration, more resists, and then more like a little bit more damage there as well. It wouldn't have been too noticeable, and it might have been technically better. So how does it work? Well, once you've gotten all the mana on the tree like this, just do this tree to start. Trust me on this, okay? Maybe if your resists are a little bit different, you can drop this node here somehow, okay? But anyways, this is the tree. Everything is mana. If you look at the connectors here, there's like, everything is dependent on jewels. So you see why I went to Witch here all the way. It's mana regen and ES, but it's also because I have a pure talent somewhere here. And pure talent, when I connect to Templar at the start, that is penetration. If I connect to the Witch, you look, it's the Witch is 0.5 max mana regen per second, which is huge. It's not reliant on Arcane Surge, it's not reliant on anything. It's just maximum maximum mana regenerated. It's really crazy. So I have that, right? And then I also have attached to Scion, gives me some stats that I sorely needed. And then luckily the attachment to Scion is also mana regeneration intelligence, so not bad. What else do you need? You need healthy minds. So you need four healthy minds. The reason is because it's just what you need to like hit to get more mana for an effective cost, as well as hit these life nodes. So the healthy mind, what it does is it gives you 20% increase max, which is huge, but it also gives you this radius where every life node is also mana. And once again, we're ES, so who cares about life? Think about these as damage nodes, right? So, and also as ES nodes. So these become doubly good. So you convert all these life nodes into mana. So anything is in it. So healthy mind right here, so you can cover all this. Healthy mind right here, so that you can cover these. My eyes are getting really dry. You can cover these nodes right here. Okay, and a healthy mind right here to cover these big boy nodes right here. So that's really good. And then once you've gotten that, you want to get your healthy minds at as close to 20% quality as you can. That would be the best. And then another jewel that I have here is a Watcher's Eye. Now this Watcher's Eye is pretty darn expensive. You're looking at 30 to 50 exalts here. Now this clarity, if you want to get a 1 clarity, then you're only looking at a few exalts, so it can be pretty cheap. If you had to only get 1, I would probably go with mana recovery rate, okay? Because if you drop the maximum mana as energy shield, then that's just like a defensive, right? It's like if you had to like a life attack build and you just drop like, I don't know, like 15% life, it doesn't really add too much to the oomph of the character, so you don't feel as bad. So get the mana recovery one if you can. That's the most important. And once again, recovery rate is like everything. It's like leech, it's like the regen, and so that means way more damages. So you kind of have to have this. Okay, but the extra ES is pretty nice. So if you look here, if I take it out, I'm at 7.6. You see that? It's like almost 3k ES from that one Watcher's Eye, but 7k. The build is so face roll that for all the content besides like the deepest delves, or like deepest delves for me is like 400 something. So yeah, you'll be completely fine. Okay, another jewel that I have is a Grand Spectrum. So I have 3 of these. Grand Spectrum, it works as it multiplies each jewel together, and then it multiplies all the mana together. So it's a massive amount of ES. So I use 3. This one, Curse with Silence, actually never happens if you're bossing, so you might want to get like a 1% reduced mana reservation, or maybe cannot be afflicted by corrupting blood or maim or something like that. Okay. And the last jewel I have, no, I have a Fevered Mind somewhere that I can't find. It's somewhere around here. Here we go, Fevered Mind. Now you have to have one of these because of the Templar node. Where is it? Where is that Templar node? Right here, right? Because you have 100% reduced here, the Fevered Mind offsets this, and then you can actually ramp up. Without it, you'd be like, dude, what's going on with my eye? I need some eye drops. Okay, without the Templar mode, you just be like, you wouldn't be able to play the build. Now, I think 2 Fevered Minds is actually the best, because although at the top end it won't really matter, the ramp up speed is what you really need. Okay, and then the ramp up speed is quality of life. So I mean, I don't know how you're gonna fit in another jewel socket there, but you can somehow if you really wanted to. And so nothing much to say there. Fevered Mind is a corrupted gem, so you can't, unfortunately you can't get implicit on it. Now the last gem I'll talk about is this one right here, and this is a new gem, comes from the Reliquary Keys, pretty darn cheap, and you put it in here, and what it does is it takes your maximum mana and it gives you maximum mana per dex. Right here there's a ton of dex in this radius, so you just get a lot of mana. Like, look at that. Okay, see, 10.9, 11.8, so like almost 1,000 mana from this one jewel. Really nice. Now you might ask, why do you have like the mana reduced mana reservation on most of them? Well, on most of them, like I think I have like 7%. So what happens sometimes is that the mana regen, you're going to be using most of your mana right when you hit the threshold for the fully ramped frenzy, but there are certain times where like not paying attention, or maybe like there's like that misfire of the Poet's Pen, and your mana, it like might just hit like the cap, right? And then if it does hit the cap, you're technically like losing a little bit of DPS, right? Because it's not like always regenerating to the perfect break point of the attack. So if you increase the mana a little bit by reduced mana reservation jewels, it's less likely for that to happen. But it's so like secondary and like so in a niche situation that it doesn't really matter. But I mean, it's if you can get it, why not, right? So another thing I have is corrupting blood cannot be inflicted for you. So when I was doing maps and stuff, and if you were doing maps, you can probably tell the scary one is not the regular bleed, right? Because when we warp around, we're not really moving, right? We're just like constantly teleporting from one place to the next. So a normie bleed is not bad. A corrupted blood bleed though will wreck you. And so if you're not paying attention and you want a little bit of freedom on your suffix to not have a staunching, just get a corrupting blood cannot be inflicted on you forehead on one of your healthy minds, or even on one of your grand spectrums. Not too expensive at all. And to be honest, when I whooped all these, like these reduced and like the corrupting blood one were not that expensive. They were really good. The last one was expensive at a couple exalts, but that was like the very last one I needed. So that's the explanation of the jewels right there. Overall, like, I would say follow this skill tree as close as possible. I don't think there's like really much else you can do for innovation. You could like take out this and then maybe like this and then level up once and then go 1, 2, 3 and then get these 20, is it 26% increased flask effectiveness, which would help your pretty much all the flasks you use, right? That's really sick. You know, speed, you know, max res, damages, big damages actually. So that's really cool. And other than that, I think that's about it. The only other thing now that we need to talk about that might take a while is attack speed. So when it comes to cooldown reduction, I've done a lot of research, okay, and then take all this with a grain of salt. Do your own research, please, but this is through my own testing. I've tested a whole lot on stream, swapping in even like very small quantities of quality on my gems to try to test this between all the way up to 4.8 all the way down to 3.8, and basically how it works is you want to miss as few casts as possible. So there's like, think about it as like breakpoints for the poet's pens. If you have no a common rule of thumb is if you have no cooldown reduction, right, whether it be on your belt or anywhere else, if you have no cooldown reduction, then you're looking at about, you want to be just under 3.8. 3.8 feels really good. But if you have any kind of cooldown reduction, there is a certain range that you're going to fall in between that you want to get your attack speed when you have all your frenzies up, when you have onslaught up, that you have to fall between to make it feel smooth on the ramp up. Now, of course, there's going to be this thing that happens that when you ramp up, when you run out of mana, if you look at the frenzy here, the frenzy is a much different attack speed and frequency than a normie attack. And when you run out of mana, you do a normie attack. So I'm not talking about this like back and forth between normie attack and then frenzy, which will feel like a lot of desync and like a lot of miscast, but it really isn't that big a deal. It's just like natural for the build. I'm talking about the like the skipping of casts that's detrimental in a sense, that relies on your attacks per second. So once again, if you have no cooldown reduction, try to get just under 3.8 and see how that feels for you. Latency is a huge factor in this that I found in my testing. And then once you have cooldown reduction, I'm going to just show you a post on Reddit here that kind of shows a good benchmark to start testing on. This is what I did. I went up to like 4.8, 4.9, and then I slowly dropped it down 0.1 at a time. And then I found that the perfect one for me was actually around like a little over 4.24, like 4.28, 4.3, something around there was actually really good for me, and it felt good. And you do notice it in mapping, in bossing, compared to the other attack speeds that you could get. And so what this is basically saying, I'll give you a TLDR, I'll link this Reddit post below the video as well, is that latency and the server quality does play a role in the attack speed. So you want to, given your amount of CDR, you really need to test around these values on a bunch of maps to get the correct value for you, because everyone's ping is going to be different. You know, you might be on like Washington might be really great one day, but the Texas might be really great one day, and then like Washington might be really shitty, and you're like, wait, well, why does my build feel so bad? So the servers do matter. And here's how you do it. So let's say that you have no cooldown reduction, then easy. What you're going to do is you're going to put this into POB and make sure that your frenzy with max frenzy charges, onslaught, right, ticked in the thing, make sure that that is just under 3.8, okay? And then you'll probably feel really good about that. But then once again, you can still tweak. And the way you tweak is with your quality. So if you look at my frenzy has no quality. You can get between 0 and 23 quality on a frenzy. And that's attack speed. So that's how you tweak the attack speed there in POB. GMP right now, mine has no quality because I'm at like the perfect attack speed and like the breakpoint for me, but you can get between, once again, 0 and 23% quality on a GMP. The levels actually don't matter for this, and so really easy to buy on PoE Trade for a few C. And then there you go, faster attacks. So that's what I was talking about earlier. Like, why am I using a 2012 faster attacks? Like, what's the reason for that? And it is because I'm trying to get at like the 4.3 around that point. And when I was testing it, it actually went really well. And I actually have tested everything. I tested all the way from 4.8 down to 3.8, because, you know, if this is my only CDR, if I remove this belt, and I put on a headhunter or something, I don't have any CDR. So I do have to actually test down to 3.8, and I did it 0.1 at a time until I was able to actually find a breakpoint that felt like natural for me, where I was acceptable with the bosses and the delves and stuff. And that just happened to be this setup here. But once again, your latency does matter. Don't believe what I say. You need to test this out yourself. Read the Reddit posts. You'll see that like there's some weird stuff going on. Okay, so once you test it out yourself, it should take no more than a day to really figure out a feels good man breakpoint for you. So I'll just say that. And so yeah, use your gems and all that stuff to really take it down 0.1 attack speed at a time until you feel something that you're like, wow, this is nice. So another thing you do here, you see this is wait, what happened? Oh, attack speeds. You see this? I even swap from like these two to these two because this is 6% attack speed. It could give you that extra edge you need to make it feel right. So like usually this would be like right here, you see? So so that's all I'll say about the Poet's Pen. Really fun build. Melts pretty much everything, you know. Yeah, if you've watched the stream, you know, like it's pretty good. And yeah, it's expensive, but it's good. And I don't know, it's like a month into the league. Hopefully you guys are having a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun. That's the video. I probably missed a lot of stuff because I do my videos as one takes. I don't have any scripts. I just kind of talk about the build and how I feel. So if I missed anything, you can just like, I mean, if you want to come by the stream, you can like ask questions about it. I'll put the POB underneath the thing. And yeah, okay, bye guys, bye.